Compromise will help ease tension. Well, maybe. It's sort of vague. According to the New York Daily News' astrologer, demand more of yourself. Well, also vague, but also pretty different. It's interesting that these predictions are not predictions. They tell you what to do. They don't say what's going to happen.
It will take years, probably decades of effort on many fronts. There will be failures and setbacks, just as there will be successes and breakthroughs.
They're consciously designed to be so vague that it could apply to anybody.
There will be further setbacks before the tide is turned, but turn it we must.
I can report that the state of the union is good. There is room for improvement as always.
Adenoid Hinkle has just said yesterday Tumania was down, but today she has risen.
I speak today in an hour of national peril and national opportunity.
I suffer no illusions that this will be an easy process. Once again, it will be hard.
Only a foolish optimist can deny the dark realities.
The demands of our time are great, and they are different. Let us meet them with faith and courage.
And they disagree with each other.
Now, this conjunction of an immense military establishment and a large arms industry is new. We recognize the imperative need for this development.
Means, unfortunately, a rising defense budget.
We have also begun the long-needed modernization of our conventional forces.
Yet we must not fail to comprehend its grave implications.
I think these are proud and memorable days in the cause of peace and freedom.
One of the most important contributions we can make is, of course, to lower the level of all arms.
We're good at small face-to-face stuff. That's what we were made for. We know how to be responsible for children and parents and cousins and friends, but we now have to be responsible for fellow citizens, both of our country and fellow citizens of the world. And the question is, can we figure that out?
Is there anyone in here that believes that God can do anything? God can do anything. We could just say, God, fix the world.
For most of history, children have been asked simply to conform to the image of the adult.
Children are initially isolated from each other because of their parents' faith. Then their differences are constantly drilled into them, and they embark on opposing life trajectories.
I want to see them as radically laying down their lives for the gospel as they are over in Pakistan and in Israel and Palestine and all those different places, you know, because we have, excuse me, but we have the truth.
Christianity is more like Islam in that way. It's really important that you believe in specific things, and you're likely to get killed by someone if you don't believe the right thing.
Particularly someone of almost the same religion.
Yeah. Don't forget, as a martyr, you'll receive eternal life in paradise for you and 100 of your relatives, unlimited sex from 72 virgins, $35 US, and a bunch more weed. So welcome to the Al-Qataya terrorist team, where work is truly a blast.
Freedom prospers when religion is vibrant and the rule of law under God is acknowledged.
He considered it his duty not only to renew and improve the Germanic race as far as possible, but also to renew and improve religion.
Mountain Meadows may be the symbol of that. And until Mormonism itself comes to terms with Mountain Meadows and how that happened, it will remain alive for them as well.
But what about the Pope's personal convictions when it comes to, say, discouraging the use of condoms in AIDS-ridden Africa?
Mussolini knew his popularity would flourish if he could win the support of the Catholic Church.
And Martin Luther described Copernicus in these words. He said, "People give ear to an upstart astrologer. This fool wishes to reverse the entire science of astronomy."
God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.
They're just a little mixed up about things in general. Nobody thinks in terms of human beings. Governments don't. Why should we? They talk about the people and the proletariat. I talk about the suckers and the mugs. It's the same thing. They have their 5-year plans. So have I.
You used to believe in God.
Well, I still do believe in God only.
We can stand up and hold up our heads and say, America is the greatest force that God has ever allowed to exist on his footstool.
In 1953 or something like 54, In God We Trust was added to the money.
Right.
And the Pledge of Allegiance, One Nation Under God, was added at roughly the same time, sometime in the early 50s. I mean, just on historical grounds, the idea that, that something so recent should now be regarded by so many Americans as
right there with the Founding Fathers.
Going back to the Founding Fathers, yes.
Standing armies is what George Washington warned us against in his farewell address, that they will destroy the structure of government that we tried to create in our Constitution to prevent the rise of an imperial presidency.
We go forward to defend freedom and all that is good and just in our world. Thank you. Good night, and God bless America.
What if we're just a bunch of absurd people who are running around with no rhyme or reason?
We humbly ask the blessing of God.
But if there is no God, well, then life has no meaning. Why go on living? Why not just commit suicide?
Well, let's not get hysterical. I could be wrong. I'd hate to blow my brains out and then read in the papers they found something.
Our special guest today is Pastor Ted Haggard. He is the president of the National Association of Evangelicals, 30 million members, the largest evangelical group in the United States of America. We have more Christian senators than ever before, more Christian congresspeople than ever before, more born-again people working in the executive branch of the White House than ever before any other administration in American history.
When the avian flu became a big issue in this country, what you heard was the president say, we have to quickly determine how fast it's mutating from birds to humans. You never heard one person in his administration say, you know, it's been designed to kill us. You know, just forget about it.
May God strengthen our hands for the good work ahead.
But I don't think one should underestimate the fix we're in, that in the end, we will not be able to explain the world, that we will have some set of laws of nature. We will not be able to derive them on the grounds simply of mathematical consistency, because we can already think of mathematically consistent laws that don't describe the world as we know it.
When you squeeze the entire universe into an infinitesimally small but stupendously dense package, at a certain point, our laws of physics simply break down.
LTCM invented complex mathematical formulas and used derivatives to place their bets.
LTCM is a case study in arrogance. A lot of really, really smart people who thought they had a foolproof money machine. A number of them Nobel Prize winners.
You're the worst kind there is, an intellectual snob.
Neither the government nor investors knew anything about how LTCM worked. That weekend, the members of the working group were told the entire American economy was hanging in the balance.
And we will always be left with a question, why are the laws of nature what they are rather than some other laws?
Most people come at this with the naive notion that there was a beginning, that somehow space and time emerged from nothingness into somethingness.
Those who write about art or talk or teach about it often raise art above life, turning it into a kind of religion.
People like to say that faith and science can live together side by side, but I don't think they can. They're deeply opposed.
We have spent more than $2 billion on the greatest scientific gamble in history, and we have won.
Nazism was political biology, and films were made to demonstrate Darwin's laws of natural selection. Some were used exactly like laboratory animals. Doctors also analyzed the skull and brains of Jews, Gypsies, and Slavs.
Science is a discipline of investigation and constructive doubt, questing with logic, evidence, and reason.
The huge advances in science and medicine had controlled many of the epidemic killers. The disease was blamed on cosmic rays, polluted air, emanations from cats and dogs, fleas, even dirty dishwater. Overseas and at home, 44,000 U.S. soldiers died of the flu, about 80% as many as U.S. battle casualties.
Faith, by stark contrast, demands a positive suspension of critical faculties.
It is an awful responsibility which has come to us. We thank God that it has come to us instead of to our enemies. And we pray that He may guide us to use it in His ways and for His purposes.
German action squads led by SS men toured the country carrying out public executions by the thousand. Himmler told his men, "It is our responsibility to God."
2 films of 2 concerts given in Britain and Germany during the last war. Both films made as war propaganda to engender pride in the national cultural heritage. The first shows a concert in London given by Mara Hess. The second shows a concert in Berlin by Furtwängler. If the experience of art is sublime, it looks as though it can be sublimely independent of a lot of other values. So perhaps we should be somewhat wary of a love of art.
And the reason behind it was that they wanted to be able to make bomb blast studies or bomb damage studies on virgin targets once the bombs were used. They were definitely military targets, there was no question about that. They offered such a, well, you could almost say, a classroom experiment as far as being able to determine later the bomb damage. I have been accused of being insane. My part in this thing may well have been something that later or now that the U.S. government might be looking at somewhat with a guilt complex. And the feeling could be that the less said about it by the United States government, the better.
And that's a grave problem, because science is also a source of power that walks close to government, that the state wants to harness. But if science allows itself to go that way, the beliefs of the 20th century will fall to pieces in cynicism.
Now this transfer of power, this increase of power, from the mere musket and the little cannon, all the way to the hydrogen bomb in a single lifetime, they rather indicate how far the advances of science have outraced our social consciousness.
The fog of war. War is so complex, it's beyond the ability of the human mind to comprehend all the variables. Our judgment, our understanding are not adequate, and we kill people unnecessarily.
Technology challenges us to assert our human values, which means that first of all, we have to figure out what they are. And that's not so easy.
A free people must now choose to shape the forces of the information age and the global society.
In the Cuban Missile Crisis, at the end, I think we did put ourselves in the skin of the Soviets. In the case of Vietnam, we didn't know them well enough to empathize. And there was total misunderstanding as a result.
iPod changed the world, and maybe this phone will change the world.
And with a translator who doesn't speak the local dialect or English very well,
say that over again.
The simplest communication seems impossible.
Haven't gone where during fighting? Haven't gone where during the fighting?
They haven't gone to, sir.
Gone where? You're not telling me where. Where have they gone? Who told you the Taliban was going to shoot you if you go to the market?
And it makes perfect sense. The ideal is to have individuals who are totally dissociated from one another, whose conception of themselves, the sense of value, is just how many created wants can I satisfy? I'm just basically quoting business literature.
How is your stock doing?
Fine.
Well, it went down, but it's coming up again.
You have to develop what are called created wants. So you have to create wants. You have to impose on people what's called a philosophy of futility. You have to focus them on the insignificant things of life, like fashionable consumption.
Always the same. People come, people go. Nothing ever happens.
Because publicity pretends to interpret the world around us and to explain everything in its own terms, publicity adds up to a kind of philosophical system. The things which publicity sells are in themselves neutral, just objects. And so they have to be made glamorous by being inserted into contexts which are exotic enough to be arresting, but not close enough to us to offer a threat.
Until one day...
I can't lie!
But nothing ever came easy until a tragic accident.
I put animal parts in it.
So fate stepped in.
Are you okay?
But when you least expect it,
hello,
fate can open the door.
The point is that you have to work. And that's why the propaganda system is so successful.
Very few people are going to have the time